Good afternoon, everyone. Cool. Where should we start? There's a lot to talk about from that, isn't there? Wardley Parker. First of all, I'm not one to gloat, but you can go back and watch my prediction video. I did say that's all I'm saying. No. In all seriousness, I thought I did predict a Wardley win by stoppage. I predicted it a little bit earlier, and kind of some of the things I thought about Joseph Parker. I thought Joseph Parker, for me, in spurts, technically was better than I'd seen him in the last three fights in which he won, if I'm honest. I thought Parker had looked a little bit fragile of late. I didn't think Parker had been the most offensive of late either. In this, his durability was fully there for me, up against the big puncher in Fabio. He took the shots really, really well. I did say, I think one of the advantages of coming in heavier is you will hold a shot a bit better and you'll punch harder. And I think Joseph Parker punches hard. And I think he held a shot better than he's looked recently. I thought the weight didn't aid him in his output. I thought he could have pushed the fight harder at times, even though he was winning the rounds. I mean, by the time of the stoppage, he was probably 3 or 4 rounds up, I would imagine, although I wasn't scoring it round by round. But I thought Joseph Parker was really good. I thought that's the best I'd seen Joseph Parker in a while. He was more offensive. He threw more combinations. He threw more punches in volume. He even doubled and trebled up the hook, which was great to see. Fabio Wardley being open to the left hook. So I thought Joseph Parker was actually very, very good, other than the things that didn't aid him, like his weight and stuff like that. I just thought going into this, I thought, timing is right. Stars align. You've got one guy who's been in a lot of fights, a lot of hard fights, and I said this in my preview. I said that Joseph Parker's results on paper than the actual physical wins, if that makes sense. I thought the wins on paper were better than the wins said more than the performances did in a positive sense. Because although they were great wins, although they were great results, there were kind of caveats to them all. Of which I've talked about many times, so I won't go over them again. But firstly, what a fight. I mean, what a fight. Joseph Parker's been in a few sort of stinkers, not always his fault. I mean, Joshua Parker was dull as anything. But Fabio Wardley is never going to be in a good fight, in a bad fight, win, lose or draw. He's not going to be in a boring fight, win, lose or draw. I talk about Parker's weight. I think for his weight, he did manage. His cardiovascular level was good, even though he was heavier than I'd like to see him. But I did think that brought him durability coming in that weight. But you have to look at Fabio Wardley, and you have to look at his conditioning and say his conditioning was fucking out of the park, absolutely out of the park. When we had Dave Allen a couple of weeks ago saying that he didn't really throw that many punches and didn't have the energy to throw any punches, and the fact that he had took shots and took so much out of him, you try to look at the difference in levels of condition. And I said, objectively, I don't think Dave was fit enough, where Fabio was, because Fabio took some massive shots off Joseph Parker and still kept coming. I criticised in the first Fabio Wardley Fraser Clark fight, and again, objectively, and Duke McKenzie said it as well, I didn't think they were fit enough. That's gone. Fabio Wardley's level of condition is absolutely fucking off the scale now. With the punches that he throws, and every punch that he throws is with full lethal intent, everything behind it, and sometimes that means he falls in and comes over his front foot and he leaves himself off balance, because he throws everything with with bad intentions, as Mike used to say. There are no feeling out shots for Fabio. Everything is thrown with full intent. And you look at the shots. I mean, I will say, for a long time, I didn't really see a lot of improvement in Fabio Wardley, technically, in terms of pacing, defensively, shot selection, feet. I think he showed a lot of improvement in this fight. I think he'd come on a lot. I think the fact that he's been fighting at really a level he's not really no right to be boxing at for all this time, unless you're an idiot and have no talent, you can't improve, and he's improved. I thought he improved massively in this fight. Yeah, I still think he's open to the long straight shots, and he is still susceptible to the left hook. But when he was up close on the ropes, he was getting that shoulder roll in, and those hooks were bouncing off the shoulders. The right hands were bouncing off the shoulders, and the other glove was up. and he defended really well in spurts, especially on the ropes. He could roll and take that one over the shoulder in close and block the others. And like I said, he's still open to the straight shots from distance. But, you know, if he did change, I suppose, and become and have a really good sound effect, it wouldn't make him offensively as good as he is to react as quick as he can and throw them bombs the way he can at the times he does. So I thought there was great improvements. I think there was times where Fabio found his feet in the wrong place and he would instantly adjust his feet and then found himself back in a position to punch again because he'd got his feet right. I thought he picked punches well. I thought he used the uppercut absolutely fucking wonderfully at times. His uppercut was fantastic. There was a little bit near the end, in the finish near the end, where Parker had his hands high and Wardley brought this sort of hook over the top and back down behind the hand so it could still land, even though Parker was on the phone. There was some really great improvements, and as I said, his conditioning, his cardiovascular level, and his chin has improved. You know, is that a case of he's got it so often he's building up a tolerance? Yeah, probably from a scientific level, because as we know, Fabio doesn't mind eating leather, and certainly on the stage of his career where he's coming up rather on the way down, physically, mentally, from a skill point of view, everything, his punch resistance getting better. Because I think Joseph Parker's a decent puncher, not destructive, but with Joe at the weight he is now, he's probably punching harder than he ever has. I mean, look at the way, yes, I know Bacoli came in out of shape, but he hit Bacoli on the top of the head and Bacoli was scrambled. I mean, the shots that Fabio took, I don't want to see Fabio taking shots like that for the rest of his career, but because it's going to be detrimental. But you just look at it and you think, fuck, you know. The big controversy is obviously the elephant in the room is the stoppage. Now, there's a lot of people, or few idiots that are talking about, you know, this is a fix or some kind of fucking conspiracy, as people do. You know, all shit. Certainly, if that was the case, then why did what's his fucking name? Referee. History of so-called early stoppages. We don't talk about. But if this was the case, he wouldn't have broke the action to let Joseph Parker buy time and get the gum shield back in if he was pro Wardley, would he? Because I thought the decision when there was action, they'd come up close, they weren't really clinching. Fabio was about to push off, and then he stepped in and broke the action and gave Joseph Parker a long time to replace the gum shield. Now, I didn't see that as a lull in the action or a good time to break the action. You should wait for a lull in the action and a good time. That wasn't a good time. That he broke the action and brought Parker, you know, time to recover because Parker was hurt. Parker was hurt visibly on a couple of occasions, and I'll get to that later when we talk about the stoppage. No doubt Wardley was hurt as well. He was. And a lot of people say that Wardley has not learned how to disguise being hurt yet. Well, if that's the case, there was never a time where Wardley was sort of scrambled or looked like he was going to fade. He took some fucking hellish shots, but you can't argue with the resistance. I'm just going to, 2 seconds. We're going to go through the stoppage, and we're going to have a look at it together and sort of go through with it. So I'm going to start it in round 9. And round 9 is where the onslaught started. And you've got to remember, it isn't just the moment on the ropes, you know, the immediate second before the stoppage that the referee is making his decision on. He's banking everything that he's seen from the moment the onslaught has started. And that started in round 9. So we're going to just have a look and go through. I may pause this and sometimes to interject, but we're just going to go through this together because the stoppage isn't just for, and right on the stoppage, there are 2 things for me that cemented it in my mind as to why the referee stopped this fight when he did. And we'll talk about that when we get there. But remember, the onslaught that came about to the stoppage started in round 9. So Parker is already taken big shots. He's been stumbled back. He's dipped and gone back. He's took clean shots. And yes, he's Richard's still about him and he's still there, but he's not throwing a great deal back. He sometimes throws a wild single shot. But at this point, this is an onslaught that has started now, which is kind of all Fabio Wardley. You see the referee there having a good look at Joe Parker as the bell rings. Joe Parker sort of stands up, he's had a shellacking. So the referee is taking all this into account. That long straight right hand there was such a good shot by Fabio. Landed absolutely flush on the chin. And then he lands the shot coming up after that. And Parker again goes back to the ropes. But that long right hand is the right hand that started it. And I timed this, and from that long right hand that started in round 11, which started the onslaught to which he was stopped, that was 38 seconds. That was 38 seconds of Fabio unloading on Joseph Parker. And I know they didn't all land, but we don't want to look at and say this was a late stoppage because a lot of those were missing. A lot of those were missing, but look at the ones that were landing. Look at the ones that were landed. Ignore the ones that missed. They're inconsequential. They missed. Look at the ones that landed. Do you want to see, a Mercer Morrison finish? Is that what we want to make it conclusive? No. I think a lot of people who say who will shout about early stoppage have never been hit. All right, but let's not talk about the shots that didn't land. Let's talk about the shots that did land. And like I said, when we get to the end of the stoppage, I'll show the two things which I think made the final decision for the referee to jump in. See, another thing to take into consideration, again, the referee is making his judgment on every second of this action. And there was a lot of times where Joe was face down, his eyes weren't on his opponent, he wasn't coming up and under, his eyes, then he was turned and his eyes were that way, and his eyes are not on the action at the whole time. Parker isn't seeing everything that's coming. And this is part of the thing that the referee sort of makes a decision on. There are times in this, as we're now, where Joe Parker is face down, he's spun, he's taking shots, and he's not seeing those shots, and they're the ones that can be, in a lot of cases, fatal. So I'm just trying to, I would, if it got let go, as long as no one was seriously hurt, I wouldn't have had a problem. But do I have a problem with this stoppage per se as it was? No, because I'm looking at this. I'm looking at times where Parker is getting hit heavy by a destructive, really hurtful puncher. We saw what happened to Fraser Clark in the second fight. And when there are times when Joseph Parker, eyes aren't even on the action, he's almost in times, looks a bit amateur, as an amateur does when he first walks in the gym, and first again, look to the floor, cover up, not looking at the punches coming, and that is a bad place to be in. You don't want to spend any longer time in that place than you have to. So we need to take all these things into account. And the referee, yeah, we can talk about his previous stoppages, Foxgroves and all that, but we have to look at this occasion on its merits as well. That was the other thing. About 20 seconds out, and he says it twice, Adam Smith does, quite a way before the stoppage, at least 10, 15 seconds. Adam Smith says he's in danger of being stopped here. And he's in danger of being stopped because Fabio is piling it on and Joseph Parker isn't really coming back. And at times, he isn't defending himself adequately. See, there's also shots like that, and that wasn't the only one he took. He took a big shot high on the head as well. They're not good. They're not good for the brain. So, again, I go back to, yes, at the moment he was stopped, you can say, well, he only took this. He took a lot of damage and punches on the way to being stopped over the end of round 10 and the start of round 11. See Adam Smith again. Howard Foster's going to step in any second. Myself, Bob from Canada's Boxing Channel, and Joe Stunner. we were talking about this sort of in depth last night, and we were saying, if you're taking a barrage and you're not answering back, you always have the chance of being stopped. You can't be surprised if you get stopped. If you're not showing anything, Joe said this, and we talked about this. Sometimes a referee will go to a corner in between rounds and says, you've got to show me something. If you don't show me something, I'm going to stop it. And that goes in the round as well. And Joe at this point was probably tired. He's dazed. He's already been dazed around before, remember? So just before the stoppage you just saw, there was a shot. Let me go back to it, see if I can find it. We'll rewind it and go back to it. No, hold on. We need another second. Right. So watch. So this is the two things. Now that moment where Parker gets hit and he kind of sags a bit, and all the fight looks gone from his body and his face. He sags, he goes back, he's not rigid, he doesn't look braced, and he has it's a movement of sort of almost concession almost. He goes back and he looks beaten. And then as he gets back to the rope, Fabio lands a left hook as well, clean. And I think it's that reaction when Wardley took that two-punch combination, when Joseph Parker took that two-punch combination, sort of sunk, went backwards, and then took the big clean hook. And I think they're what made the decision for the referee to jump in. And like I said, I would, if it had gone on, whatever, and as long as no one sees it, I wouldn't have had a problem. But do I have a problem with this stoppage? Conceding all the damage that Joseph Parker took in round 9, and round 10, end of round 10, and then everything he took through round 11. And yeah, you can argue, but they weren't all landing. But the ones that landed were devastating. And Joseph Parker's, his body, the way sometimes he was getting hit with punches and he wasn't seeing them because his eyes were on the floor and they were down here, and he was getting punches he wasn't even seeing coming and wasn't bracing for. These are all things that, to me, I find this a justifiable stoppage. Am I going to, do I take umbrage if anyone who says it was early? No, I can see how you might see it's early, but in my opinion, when you've got the safety and the concern of the fighter, and I know you can say he was a lot of rounds in front, I'm sorry, Joe had took a lot of bad shots, a lot of big shots over almost a round and a half, or half of one round and almost half of the other. And at this point, he's sagged, he's going backwards. I don't have a problem, I'm sorry. See, he takes that hook, then he takes another right hand, and I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, myself, Joe Stunner, and Bob from Cannon's Boxing Channel, we all had a conversation. We were all pretty much in agreement that we didn't have a big problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. I'll tell you one thing for me. What I think, and this is another thing that to me says Joe Parker had a tiny little sort of what you're doing, but it wasn't a massive sort of outrage at being stopped. Now, what Joe Parker could have done, had he have had the energy and had he been thinking at the time, and this is just hypothetical, but this is how this could have changed the end of this fight dramatically, and where these two fighters go next, is that Joseph Parker had that fight, had sort of Howard Foster jumped in, had Joseph Parker reacted the way George Groves did, absolutely threw up his arms, went round in rage, went round the ring, describing how disgusting it was at the stoppage. I was fine, I was ready to continue. Had Joseph Parker done that, the mood of everyone ringside and watching that fight would have been, the ones who were like, that was an early stoppage, would now be cemented in, it's a fucking outrage, he's been robbed, look at him, look at how much, look, he's still well enough to complain, he's still going around the ring kicking off and doing all this sort of stuff. He was robbed, it was an early stoppage. But because Joseph Parker, and this is just partly down to what a good character is, he didn't. He had a little, and then accepted it. And when Joseph Parker accepts a stoppage like that, a lot of people watching find it more easy to accept the stoppage as well. If Joseph Parker had gone absolutely ballistic at the stoppage, it would have strengthened the case of an early and unjust stoppage, but he didn't. So I'm just saying that's one thing Joseph Parker could have done, which would have made this look totally different. I, on the other hand, would have still stuck to what I thought. I don't have a problem with a stoppage. I don't want to see fighters fucking brain damaged and leave this sport all fucked up. I don't want to see Joseph Parker, because of the punishment he took, at a time where he looks to be wilting, faded, not seeing every shot coming, taking big shots. Yes, a lot of sailing by, but a lot of landing. I don't want to see Joseph Parker permanently fucking damaged. I want to see him go home to his family. This is a sport at the end of the day. And I don't care what you say, get in there and get it regularly. And, there weren't that many pros with that much argument over the stoppage. So I certainly don't have an argument over the stoppage. So the talk is he now becomes number one contender for Usyk's WBO. Is that true? A lot of people saying Duke McKenzie was one. He ain't going to beat Usyk. Of course he's not. Well, look at it like this. We've had technically the best fighters, or technically the best fighter. I'd say, you know me, I'm not a massive Tyson Fury fan. But is he technically the best heavyweight outside of Usyk that we've had in the last 5-10 years? I would sort of say yes. Trying to think, I think Joshua is technically very good, but he doesn't know what Fury knows when it comes to boxing. And Fury didn't get close to beating Usyk, not at all. Joshua didn't get close to beating Usyk, not at all. Daniel Dubois didn't get close to beating Usyk, not at all. And you can argue neither did Derek Chisora. But who posed Usyk the most questions? Any of them or Derek Chisora? By his own admittance, Derek Chisora gave him the toughest night. And he did give him a tough night because Derek is slightly unorthodox. Derek is slightly wild and does things sort of. Derek doesn't have pace, although Fabio's hands were a lot quicker in this fight. So again, one of the improvements he made. And I know that was, he fought Chaz Witherspoon first and then fought Derek, I believe. But that was, and you can say it was early on in his heavyweight career, but it wasn't early. Usyk was a master at the time he fought Chisora, and Chisora gave him problems. So if Chisora can give him problems, I don't give Fabio Wardley any less of a chance than anyone else he's boxed of beating Alexander Usyk. Because Alexander Usyk is beaten technically the best in Tyson Fury, beaten possibly the best athlete, the best athletic heavyweight at the time in Anthony Joshua, and dealt with him. Now, do you think Fabio Wardley is going to do any worse than either of those? No. I'll tell you one thing about Fabio Wardley as well. Fabio Wardley will respect Alexander Usyk massively, but Fabio Wardley will not show any respect to Alexander Usyk in that ring. And I thought one of the problems with Daniel Dubois when he fought Usyk the first time was he gave him too much respect. He gave up his power and gave up his ferocity. I think Joshua did as well. Fury tried it a little bit, but that's not really Fury's bread and butter. Fabio Wardley will go in there, and as soon as that bell rings, he will have absolutely no fucking respect for Alexander Usyk in there at all. And it could get him beaten. But look at Fabio Wardley's chin. Now, Usyk may stop Fabio Wardley with an accumulation as he does. He'll start off in second gear. As he gets to the mid-rounds, he'll start going through the gears, and that may well be the case. But Fabio Wardley's got a hell of a fucking chin, and who's to say that Fabio Wardley hasn't fucking detonated on Alexander Usyk at that point? Tyson Fury detonated on Alexander Usyk. Anthony Joshua landed shots on Alexander Usyk. They were fleeting and granted. But Alexander Usyk gets hit, and Alexander Usyk's only human. I thought Fabio Wardley, one of the reasons he would win this fight, as I said at the beginning, because timings were right. One was an undeniable fucking savage on the way up, full of belief, full of testosterone. Joseph Parker is not the most angry, savage, dirty, not dirty in a foul way, but just a naughty fucking boy. Fabio Wardley is. Joseph Parker is all fighter, but he isn't the killer that Fabio Wardley is. And I just think Fabio Wardley has as good a chance as any of those guys of beating Usyk. Usyk will be massive favourite, we know. But anyway, I'll see you all soon.